What's up, Zero to Here podcast fans? Welcome back to the show. This is a super exciting night, day, whatever time you're listening to this. This is our 100th episode, guys. Thank you so much for your support. We love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. We know the beginning of the podcast was not super great. We weren't super great, but it's getting better. And this episode is outstanding for our 100th episode of the podcast. And some super big news. I want you all to grab a beer and cheers me. We are officially retiring the Zero to Here podcast name. Zero to Here podcast will be moving forward as the Denny Dumas podcast. It's exciting. New logo. We're going to do some sweet swag. We're pumped. Better guests. Well, not necessarily better. The same quality of awesome, ridiculously great guests moving forward. It's going to be fun. New adventure. Looking forward to 101. Looking forward to the next 100. Thank you for sticking with us. We love you guys. We would love to hear feedback. Shoot us messages. We just want to hear feedback. We want to continue to grow and get better. Episode 100, a really inspirational dude that I have had the luxury of getting to know pretty well in the last decade. Randy Nohr. He was a phenomenal basketball player. He won championships at the high school, collegiate, and professional level. Played for the Canadian national team. Coached me at UBC, coached at UBC for 6 years. Now is running businesses throughout Greater Vancouver. He's a really inspirational dude. He's battled a couple spurts of a very serious illness that we chatted about. Awesome guy. It's someone who you can take something away from, just his mindset, his outlook on life, his optimism. Very, very in-depth, very cool conversation that I gathered a lot from. Hope you guys get a lot from it as well. Continue to follow along. Thank you for hanging out with us for 100 episodes. Looking forward to providing some more fantastic conversations in the near future. I really want to start with an update on hospitality.
Okay.
I'm pumped because the summer is starting. Sunshine's out.
Yeah.
Patios are going to be opening.
Yeah.
I read something on Facebook today that said, I don't know if this is accurate or not. One of my friends posted it, but is it Dr. Bonnie?
Yeah.
Announced 50% capacity max in restaurants.
Changed today.
Okay.
Yep. That was yesterday.
Isn't this crazy?
Yeah.
And
it was different the day before. In the last 3 days, it's changed twice. So 3 days ago, it was tables just had to be 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
Then Dr. Bonnie said 50% capacity. Today, I just got an email at, 3:30. No, we're back to just 6 feet apart, and we're not worried about capacity. Because most people, your capacity is probably half or even less than that once you start moving tables around.
Totally.
Yeah. So
the other thing that was in this post, and I have no idea because they mentioned the 6 feet apart, they mentioned 50% capacity. The other thing was one person in each group has to leave their contact information, and the pubs have to hold on to it for 30 days.
Yes.
Or restaurants, whatever it is. Is that accurate?
It is. Yeah. So if me and you
For
come
what
in,
purpose?
so that if there was an outbreak in your location, I would assume you would give the list to them, and then they would contact and be like, hey, were you in a pub on this date? Just to let you know, there was someone that had COVID. Yeah.
But like, why hospitality specifically, right?
Well, it's funny because when it came out, I was like, it makes sense. But we all go into grocery stores that they don't ask. We all go I don't know. I mean, it sounds really good from the purpose of like, if there was an outbreak, you'd be able to track it. But we don't do it at any other stuff. Like Costco's got people lined up all over the place, and they're going to have more people in Costco than I'm going to have in my pub.
Dude, way more.
Touching way more things where like you go into a pub. And I guess it's because when you go into a pub, you're in a location or in a restaurant, you're just in a location and you're there for a certain amount of time. Where I guess they're saying in a Costco, you're kind of moving around the whole time. But to me, all the Costcos and all those things look like you're standing in a lot of lines. So
in grocery stores, you're touching a lot of stuff too, right? Like produce.
yeah.
You have avocados. Like you touch every single one trying to find a ripe one, right?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's frowned upon nowadays, though, isn't it?
It's just luck of the draw.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that claw machine. When you drop the claw, you just get one egg or whatever.
Whatever you're stuck with. So, yeah. But it's crazy. Like it's been changing by the day. Like there was measurements that changed. They 2-3 days ago said its tables are just 6 feet apart. So we were pretty excited about that because when you're not factoring in the chairs.
Yeah.
But then they're like, the next day they're like, no, 50% capacity and it's like person to person, which it makes more sense. But that's not what they said the day before. So we had to go and remeasure every location. And yeah, it's been an interesting time. That's for sure.
Man, what about like staff? Have you communicated? I'm assuming you've communicated with all the staff now. If you're opening tomorrow,
I haven't. All the general managers have.
Yeah.
And we have, I'd say, half the staff coming back because obviously with being way less capacity, we're assuming that we're not going to be as busy. Yeah. So we're not bringing back all the staff in this kind of wave, and we're just kind of. I mean, we've contacted all the staff, and most of the staff are pretty good, and most of them are excited to come back to work. We did have some in one of our locations that said that they didn't want to come back. They feel unsafe. It's funny when you tell certain people though, and you ask them, "Hey, Denny, are you going to come to work?" And you're like, "No, I don't think I'm going to." Then you go, "Well, just so you know, then we got to change your ROE so that you're saying you quit. So you probably won't get that free money." They're like, "Well, maybe I'll think about it again." We've had a few of those, so but
it's interesting because what is their comfort level like? Because it's my experience is talking to like clients and friends, and most of which are under 40. Mm-hmm. And it seems like most under 40 are being slightly more cautious, not touching people, not shaking hands, but like their day-to-day lives are going on fairly normally. But then obviously a lot of the older people are wearing masks 24/7 and, trying to not go out of their home. So like,
yeah, I think because we have a wide variety of people that work for us, I think we kind of hit the whole spectrum. Mm-hmm. So we have some people that are, middle-aged and they just think it's silly and they're just like, come on, let's go back to work. And then we have some younger people we have quite a few single moms that are working for us. Yeah. So they've got some different challenges with, daycare, and they're worried about the new, I think there's a new version of COVID that's affecting kids. Not that it's in BC, but I think there's been one case of it in Montreal. Mm. So that was brought up, I know, in a few of the meetings. So yeah, it's interesting, all the different scenarios you see where a lot of people are just like, Then we get some people that are like really nervous, and kind of everybody's a little different on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the main things that have changed? Has like any way in terms of food prep changing, or I don't know, like servers, even like I'm thinking about restaurants and all the things that I used to do bartending, like roll-ups. Like I would put a knife and a fork together and I would roll them into a napkin and then give it to someone. But that means I'm touching the knife and fork. Like, is that kind of stuff adjusting?
I guess my question is, how would you give it to them without touching it? So what our plan is that we are still going to do that. We're just maybe going to add some steps where maybe you washed your hands before you did it.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't. So we're just, anytime that you touch money, before you touch anything else, you got to wash your hands. Mm-hmm. Before you do roll-ups, you got to wash your hands. And then our plan is then how we would give it to people will be slightly different. You'll use napkins so that you're not touching cutlery.
Mm. Are you accepting cash still?
We're just preferring to use debit and credit. But if someone only way of paying is cash, which does still happen nowadays,
Yeah.
I mean, it's rarer, but we will accept that we're just, it's funny, tomorrow I got to go to the bank, and because all of the pubs, we put all the money into the bank. We don't have no floats, or we don't have any money or anything. So I got to go pick up a bunch of cash tomorrow for all the pubs. So
You run how many pubs now?
5.
And how many liquor stores?
Well, 4. We have 5 within our group. I really am only responsible for 4 though.
How, I'm assuming a little bit here, but how much busier have the liquor stores been in the last 2 months?
Yeah, they're busier.
Yeah.
They're significantly busier. It's kind of like Christmas.
Every day is Christmas.
That week of Christmas where it's like kind of every day is that much busier. It's kind of like that.
Mm.
Not all of ours, but most of them you can see that there's been an increase.
I think I was talking to you about this a couple days ago, but a lot of the locations you guys lease. So right?
Yeah.
So what's that relationship been like with landlords?
We have 4 locations that we lease out of 10. One of them's a liquor store, so that's fine. We have 3 pubs that are leases, and it's been a struggle. So one of the landlords has been great at our Surrey location. She's worked with us kind of from the beginning. Realized that we had 0 income, that the government closed us. So we worked out a very fair deal while we're closed. The other 2, who were both run by big organizations, both have been ruthless and just been like, nope, you got to pay all the rent. And even when the government announced their 75% thing, we sent them emails and they're like, nope, we don't have to do that. Why would we want to take a 25% hit? And it's just, they know that they have you on the lease documents. So they're just like, they want all their money. So I see their point where, a lot of them are big. Like one of them is the Teachers Foundation out of Toronto is one of the things. So I'm sure that the money is already accounted for. So
what would be the disadvantage of them like just taking off X amount of money per month, let's say 50%, and putting it onto the back end of the lease when everything reopens?
Yeah, I don't know enough about leases to that would make the most amount of sense.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that just from a cash flow standpoint, you'd have a few months where you didn't have as much money coming in.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause, we're talking about a fair amount of money.
Totally.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's been interesting to see how we've got one that's, so of our 4, 2 of them are family run and 2 of them are like hedge funds and they're very, very different in their approach.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them's already sent us stuff going after legal action where it's like, if we don't have a check, it's been a little stressful. So
what do you think the next couple of months are going to look like in hospitality?
I think they're going to be really slow. I think that, when you're comparing them to last year's numbers, never mind you're going to have 50 to 55% of your seats. I think that you're going to, kind of like we were talking about earlier, where you're going to have lots of people that are okay with going out, but there's still going to be a big chunk of society that's like, I'm not going out. And let's just say I'm not expecting it to be really, really busy. No, I would expect on sunny days it might be a little bit busier. More people might be a little, willing to get out of the house if they could go and sit on a patio.
Yeah,
that fresh air. So the good thing for us is that we do have some pretty good patios and some fairly big ones. So
wasn't there something about the government allowing more seats on the patio or extending patios or something like that?
Yeah. So I think the big focus was for Vancouver, where there's a lot of restaurants that don't have patios.
Right.
And Vancouver's got a bunch of restrictions on size of patios, and like you're only allowed, a certain so many seats.
And hours, right? You have to close much earlier than the actual restaurant does.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, that's one of the things we're looking at is we're probably not going to open with the same hours that we had before. We'll probably restrict the hours too, because a lot of our business in our locations is a lot of birthday parties, a lot of fundraisers, and a lot of big events where we're not expecting a lot of those. So, I mean, one of our locations turns into a bit of a nightclub. So that component of our business just won't be there. So
how's that changing? Have you heard, is there?
Well, they're not even allowed to open.
Nightclubs are not allowed to open.
No, they're not even. I think they're in phase 3. So yeah, I know.
Is this coming week phase 2?
Tomorrow is the start of phase 2. And there's no like date on phase 3 yet.
That would be like events and festivals and stuff like that?
No, I think that's 4.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My understanding.
Because a nightclub is almost like it's like a concert.
Yeah, and like people go to nightclubs to dance and be close to people. So until that 6-foot distancing is not a thing, I don't see them being open. Yeah.
It's a crazy world, man.
Yeah. So,
it's almost surreal, like living through this stuff. Because you hear so much conflicting information and you want to take it really seriously. But then on the other hand, there's a lot of people that are saying like, this is not as serious as everyone's saying. And then on the other side, people are saying like, this is going to kill you if you go outside. Yeah. So it's so hard to, especially with the age that we're in where social media is so prevalent and anyone can post a YouTube video saying like, I've done all this research. Here's all the facts, blah, 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 blah. How do you know what is
what
real
to believe?
And what's not real?
Yeah.
Even like you hear rumors, maybe they're conspiracy theories about like Funchi, the US guy, having the medication and the vaccine trademarked. He's got it. He's just like waiting for the right time to release it to make as much money as he can.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's real. I don't know if that's conspiracy. How do you figure that information out?
Yeah. That's the problem. There's so much information and you don't know what to believe. Yeah. And then you hear one thing, then the next day you're hearing the complete opposite of it. So I think people just have to pick one source, do an educated guess on who you think the person is that you're going to follow. I'd say in BC, I think we're kind of lucky. She seems like she's got a pretty good head on her shoulders, the health minister there. So yeah, I mean, we've been very, very conservative in our approach and it's probably the right thing. I mean, I think a lot of our success was a bit of a fluke, to be honest. The fact that we just, it happened before our spring break.
Yeah.
So we just had less people that had traveled. Like I know about 15 people that work for me that their flights, their trips got canceled. Like they were going Mexico, Europe, like you name it, they were going. And all of their travel plans got. Now, if this would have happened 2 weeks later, all of those people are coming back on planes and you know what I mean? Yeah. So
I was supposed to go on a bachelor party on March 14th, I think, for 4 nights to Chicago. And the night before at like 11 p.m., our whole group is texting each other. There's like 12 of us. We're like, we probably shouldn't go, but we really want to go. What's the worst that could happen? And whatever, we decided not to go. The plane still left.
Yeah.
It wasn't like our flight was canceled, but we decided not to go. Looking back, it was probably the right decision to do, but
maybe.
Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I guess it probably was. You would have got there. All the bars would have been closed or any other establishments that you were going to.
I don't know if they would have been yet. I think that was the weekend that changed because instead we went to Whistler.
And Whistler closed on the
Monday. So
18th?
We were
or 16th.
16th or 17th. I can't remember.
Yeah.
We were there Friday, Saturday, left Sunday morning. All of Whistler closed on Monday.
You guys partied that hard, eh? You closed her down.
Coffee shops, bars, the mountain closed, everything that next day.
Do you have a good stag? Like,
it wasn't mine. Yeah, it was fun. I don't know. It was fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people there.
Yeah.
Went to Longhorns during the day and there was like I don't know, 500 people in there at least. There was something on Twitter. Then like 3 days later, there was a photo of like some girl standing on a chair in Longhorns saying like, this is what Whistler was doing, whatever, 2 days before the shutdown. And one of my friends is in the background of the photo. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was for us. St. Paddy's Day is our biggest day of the year. I mean, we have 2 Irish bars. Like, that's our Super Bowl.
And you closed 2 days before?
And we literally closed. Well, we found we were down to 50 people the day before, or maybe that day. Like, I had people texting me, like, are we still doing the party? Are we still? I'm like, as of now, we're still doing it. Then, like, it was just, everything was happening so quick. When they closed pubs, they made the announcement at like 3:00. And then you had to be closed by like 6. Like, it was crazy. Yeah. So.
I think I like the long-term effects that, what, do you want to maybe Google what is the total amount of money that the government of Canada has dished out right now? I want to say it's like a couple $100 billion.
Oh man, I can't even imagine.
It's probably huge. Like, I wonder if that number is, how accurate that number can even be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to put money in lives and stuff, but like, you just look in BC where, what's the death count at right now?
Do you know?
100?
Do you want to look? I was going to say like 200 something.
No, it's in the hundreds. I think it was like 130 something.
That's it?
Yeah.
And of that 130 something, let's say that 80% of that is coming out of old age homes.
There's like a couple of care facilities that had a lot, right?
And of what I would be curious at is, what would the number normally be during flu season? Because like, when there's just a regular flu, like the normal flu that happens in October, the death toll in those places goes up.
One of the hardest things for me to, I think I took it fairly seriously, like pretty seriously. But one of the really difficult things for me to try to understand is that anyone that had COVID was counted, or like had COVID symptoms, was counted as a COVID case. Mm-hmm. Even though lots of them weren't tested, even though lots of them had other illnesses. So like one famous guy in the States, he's a comedian, Michael Yu, I think his last name is. Michael Yo, yeah. He was one of the first cases from New York or something like that. Mm-hmm. He was in the hospital and they diagnosed him with COVID. But he also had double pneumonia in both lungs. And so he was on a podcast talking about his experience with COVID. And he's like, I couldn't breathe. And I'm thinking in my head, that's probably from the pneumonia, man. Like, you had it in both lungs. That's pretty bad. But automatically his illness is due to COVID, not due to other illnesses that he had.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if this is a conspiracy or not, but I've heard so many different doctors and nurses from the States say that they had been pressured into announcing deaths as COVID deaths.
Yeah.
Without testing.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes sense if people are dying and they were brought in for symptoms that seem to be that. Maybe it was one of the causes. Maybe they were very sick before and this kind of pushed them over the.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's normally what happens in these old age facilities. Mm-hmm. Is people aren't dying because of the flu. The flu is what pushes them over the limits.
Really weak
They're
immune
like
systems.
Their weak immune system. They just can't fight it off. And unfortunately, this is a very intense version of that. And it has some extreme effects on certain people. But there's a lot of people that have it and don't even know, right? So it's a tricky one to look at the overall effect, because the financial effect on the world. I mean, I guess the only good thing is there's not one country that's not affected financially. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're all in the same boat. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but at least no one's getting up on. There's no country that's dominating or doing much better than any other country. I mean, everybody's had to kind of take the same approach.
Except Sweden.
If Sweden
Sweden
stayed
one of the
open.
only ones that is just like herd immunity. Will people figure it out?
Yeah, so I played basketball in Sweden, so
Yeah.
I've been following the Sweden one a little bit, and their death toll. I remember when I looked at it a couple weeks ago in Sweden, they were comparing Sweden to Denmark and Norway, similar sized countries. Sweden didn't close anything, and was like, yeah, if you have a weak immune system, don't come out.
Exactly.
If you we're not going to have big gatherings, but we're not closing our pubs and restaurants. If you want to go. Like, they didn't have concerts and those types of things. And then work that could be done with space, they did. But they're like, yeah, just go out, wash your hands. Now their death toll was significantly higher than Norway's and Denmark's.
Who shut down?
Who shut down.
Yeah.
But it was like the financial, I'd be curious to see, like, obviously you don't want to put a price on someone's life, but it'd be interesting to see which country comes out of it. Because, I mean, there's going to be a lot of deaths that aren't going to be COVID, but are going to be related to it. I mean, stress, one of the biggest killers. I know, as someone that owns businesses, it's a stressful time, so.
Stress, unemployment is going to be a huge one.
Yeah.
People who are just living paycheck to paycheck now get their paycheck cut off and they can't pay rent and
Yeah.
I don't know,
That
homeless or using
trickle
drugs
down
to try
effect.
to
Yeah.
supplement the stress or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Strange. It's very, very, very strange. This really has no correlation. Slightly. I just want to mention it because I haven't told anyone because I saw this a couple days ago. I was driving, stop at a red light a couple days ago, look over, guy next to me in his truck, wearing a mask, down below his mouth, smoking a cigarette. Dude, the cigarette is much worse for you, man.
Yeah. You got to love that logic.
Yeah. It makes no sense.
The best one I saw was, I think I saw it on Facebook. It was someone who was wearing a mask and was trying to do something because he was wearing gloves. So he pulled his mask down and he was biting to pull his gloves off. I'm like, that's like the ultimate worst thing to do. But anyways,
We're trying.
yeah,
We're
baby
trying,
steps.
just not super smart trying. It's okay. We'll get through it. I don't really know how to bring this up. I just want to mention a couple things from my athletic career growing up. And there's a couple of things that I remember super, super clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And they were, I don't know, I guess pushes in the right direction. You were responsible for one of them. I don't even know if you're going to remember this. There was one from U17 provincial team camp that I remember a coach said something to me that just like reassured that I was doing the right things. Because I always thought as a kid, if I could work harder than other people, I was going to be better than them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like the mindset I've kind of dragged out of sport into business
work,
and life. And one of the other ones that really sticks out in my head was something you wrote on a, like, I don't know, report card, would you say? I think it was a CP training session or something like that.
Yeah,
and it might have been my first year, grade 9, going in. And at the end, I think it was like a tryout to get into CP. And they picked like 8 guys each age group or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, my first year, grade 9. And I look at my report card and Randy was one of the coaches through training camp or something. Look at my report card. It's like shooting, whatever, 3 out of 5. Defense, 3 out of 5. Left hand, 1 out of 5. Work ethic, 5 out of 5. And the only comment he wrote at the bottom was, "This is the only reason this kid's good."
That doesn't sound like me. Jeez.
So like going in, obviously growing up, 2 older brothers, I figured that like the only thing I can control is work ethic. And if I work harder than people, I'm going to be better than them.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of what I took through sport and now into life. And so getting those little reassurances from people that I admire, obviously like you that played for national team, played professional, those are pretty big. And then there was one in U17, but I think that was the first one. And I think a lot of kids would look at that and be like, huh, kind of sucks. I think I suck. Like I can't shoot. I have no left hand. All I do is work hard. That kind of sucks. But I looked at it and I was like, fuck yeah, I'm on the right track. Do you remember writing that?
No, I don't remember writing it.
It's so weird why like stupid little things like that stick out in your mind.
Yeah, it's funny when I run into people all the time in different scenarios where I'll run into them and I've either played against them as I'm running into more people that I've coached in that environment or like at camps and those types of things. And they'll bring up things like, oh, remember when you said this? I was like, no, I've done lots of basketball camps. And that sounds like something I would say.
Yeah.
But it's funny on the report card one because I remember writing some comments on certain people's ones, but I don't think I was the one who filled in the report cards. I think it was because the 1 year it was Scott Clark.
I think Scott was there that year.
And 1 year it was Goulet. So me and Goulet kind of did it together a couple of years. Now I'm not sure if that was your grade 12 year or after you were done. But yeah, it's lots of times those it would be like someone would have filled it out and then you kind of just grabbed cards and wrote different things, you know? So, and because you were one of the few people that I knew, probably makes sense that I would have written on yours, you know?
It was so funny. Remember looking at it and be like, huh, that's all they have to say about me. Eh?
Yeah. Too funny.
This is something I wanted to bring up because I look at my sport career as like, I talk about adversity and whether it's real adversity comparatively to like other people's situations or not, I don't know. I can't really compare, but I look at the losses and all that kind of stuff and think, well, I remember them really, really vividly, but think like, I want to use this to keep getting better. You won everything though. So when I look at your career, you won 2 high school championships.
Yeah.
You won 2 college championships.
Yeah.
You won 2 university championships.
Yeah.
Then you won 2 professional championships.
Yeah. But there's some things in there. So like one of the big ones is when I was in grade 10, my high school team was ranked 1 and 2 all year. And I was always one of those like kind of like you where I thought I could like outwork people and thinking that like I remember that was one of the first years they had a grade 10 provincials. So you had to finish, I don't know, top 5 at Fraser Valleys.
Yeah.
Our first or second game, we lose. Out. So it was funny for me because my grade 10 year, we thought we were going to win provincials. And then all of a sudden we don't even make provincials. And then the end of my grade 10 year, I went and played on the senior team. And I still remember the coach at the time. They had a pretty good team. And he knew that our grade 10 team was quite good. And so he had like 4 or 5 of us come up. But they had a rule that before any of us could play, everybody had to play that was already on the team. And what ended up happening was I think we lost our first game and then we won all the rest of the games after that. And it's one of those ones where I know our last game was for 5th or 7th and I was starting. So I went from not playing in the first game or very, very little and kind of was a fun one but I still remember how that feeling of not making it. So then had success grade 11 and 12. And I would say a lot of that has to do with the disappointment in grade 10. And then I went to Fraser Valley my first year. It's the only year I've ever played basketball and not made playoffs. We had to win one of our 2 last games going into the final weekend. We played up in Kelowna on Friday night, drove back down and played Trinity Western on Saturday, lost both. And like I was a big part of that team and just couldn't lead us to that championship. Like part of it was just like the mesh of the team. But I mean, at the end of the day, I was our leading scorer as a freshman, but couldn't get us to that point. I mean, maybe being young and not understanding the college game. I mean, it's one of those ones when you're college, university, everybody thinks they're good. And you're a certain level of good, but when you're playing against 22, 23-year-old guys as an 18-year-old, there's still a big difference. So that obviously had a really big impact on my second and third year in college. And then I kind of was able to use my college stuff to really make the right decision for my university stuff. So when I had my first year at Fraser Valley and didn't have success, I put a lot more thought into where I was going to go my next year, the type of coach I was going to play for, different factors that I knew were going to be really important. And went and played for Kev. And that was a great fit. I mean, we had a nice 2-year run where I'm not sure what our record is, but I know my last year we were 40-2. But the year before was probably with Mitch was probably 35-5 or something like that. Like, so when it was time to start looking to the next step, it was like Kev really helped me through that whole process where there were some teams, remember Manitoba and Winnipeg and those schools like, hey, we want you to come. And Kev's like, he's not coming to your school. Like straight out, Randy wants to win. Like if he doesn't want to win, he's going to go to UBC. Because then he'll stay local and he'll do that. But he really wants to win. And it was because I had that experience my first year where I was just like, I can't go and be around a bunch of people that are just here to have a good time. And if winning is not your number one thing, I'm not going to be a good fit. So then I kind of was able to bring that to St. FX. And when I went to St. FX, we had a really good team. They just didn't have a point guard. So that's why I went there. Then my first year playing pro, same thing. It was a disappointing year and it was part of the reason that I went my next year. So, and that's the year that we won it. So I did have those things in there, even though it sounds like I've won lots of championships. There are those defining like, still losing. I think it was MEI my grade 10 year. It just drives me nuts. You know, there's a few losses in there that really, really hurt. So
do you remember like throughout your college career thinking about like consciously taking time to think about those losses? Like what?
Oh yeah.
You're one of the most competitive people I've ever played a basketball game against.
I think one of the best lines that really sums me up is a lot of people like winning, but when you get to the point where you hate losing more than you like winning, that really sums me up. Like I'm just a bad loser. Like like it just, I'm doing anything to win. You cheat, pull shorts, like it's bad. Like I'm going down swinging. And that's always kind of been my approach when I was playing. Like, so
it was always really bad in men's league, Carl, when Randy thought he got fouled at one end of the court. Because then at the other end, if you go to the hoop, you're just getting hit sticked. Like straight tackle.
Oh, man. Those are my best at open gyms. The people that, if it's, what is it, defense calls or offense calls, no problem. You don't call foul on me, I got no problem. You'll be picking yourself off the ground. So.
Where did that, do you remember where that like original mentality came from?
I totally do. When I was young, it was a really big deal. So my high school team, the kids older than me, they used to play at lunchtime in the morning, and there'd be 5-on-5 games. And teachers sometimes would play, and because lunch is only 40 minutes, like we would start playing right away. Like people didn't eat lunch, and you tried to play the whole lunch. And then what would happen is people would come in the gym and they'd watch. So I remember like being in grade 8 and they'd be like, hey, do you want to come play? And being crappy. Then being grade 9 and be like, hey, do you want to play? Then I remember there was a week when I was in grade 10, because my grade 10 team was really good, to the point where like my grade 10 team thought we could beat the seniors. And so we played lots of times in the morning. It'd be like 5 of us versus 5 of them. And we got kicked out of the gym for a week because it turned into a fight, and like it was super, like we beat them, and it was one of the, like, kind of what we're talking about, where it's like if you got fouled and didn't call it, you'd foul them even harder. So like to win those games sometimes at lunch, it had to be like a step back three, because if you went to the hoop, you're just going to get murdered. And still to this day, like one of the things that's really common with every good team I've played on is their practices and those things. And because I had the same high school coach for 5 years, he really brought that got us to play with a big intensity, like drills. And so I think a lot of it has to do early on in high school, just wanting to play and keep playing. Because sometimes if you lost, you weren't going to get to play the rest of the lunchtime or before school. And we kind of did that my whole high school career. Like even when I was in grade 12, guys would come, get there at 7:15, and we would play from 7:15 till the first bell went at 8:20. And there was like normally 2 teams playing plus 4 to 6 guys. Sometimes we'd have like enough that we had 2 teams. So if you lost, you had to sit at 2 games. And like we would do everything. Like we'd mix it up sometimes, and there'd be like, you know, sometimes two of the better players and a few guys. And like, it was just competitive battles with guys that I'm still really good friends with, where like we would be fighting and really going after it. Yeah. And it's funny because when I play in like men's league and stuff with some of these guys, some of them aren't that good of players, but they're super competitive because they have that. So like when you play men's league and you try, like you're better than someone who's a better basketball player, right? So it's been a lot of fun. So, but that's definitely where I got it, was early on in my high school, just getting after it.
I'm assuming you're watching The Last Dance.
Oh man, I was up this morning at 6.
On the topic of winning.
Yeah.
Jordan was always seen like crying the night of his win.
Yeah.
And then the next morning being like, fuck, it's next year. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's get back in the gym. Did you ever take time to appreciate the success, the winning?
Yeah. I mean,
I think it's easy to reflect and look back and be like, that was such a cool experience.
Yeah.
But like when you're in the heat of the moment, not that I ever won like anything to the level of you did, but whenever I would win, I would always be thinking about the next thing. I would never maybe
I can think of twice, maybe 3 times. Both times in university after we won, where it's like I took time for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then my last year at Langara, where I definitely like won and was like, I'm not touching a ball for a week. I'm going to party, have a good time. I still had to make a bunch of big decisions.
Mm-hmm.
My phone was ringing off the hook, and I'm just like, I don't want to deal with any of these people. I just want to have a good time and not think about it, and go for a beer on a Thursday night just because I didn't do that when I played. Like I'd go out on a Saturday night after. So in college, we'd play Friday, Saturday, but like, yeah, it was just nice to act normal.
Totally.
You know? So
what's that next season like though? Like I've never won a big championship in basketball, so I have no clue. But I would assume there's a little bit of arrogance coming off of a championship season. And so like, what is that next, like, let's say the first month of practice back, I'm sure there's some extra swagger that wasn't there the year before. Like how do you, especially as a leader on a team, how do you kind of like motivate guys to,
I don't think I had that very much. I think my high school coach kind of broke that early, where it's like we won when I was in grade 11, then we were getting after it right away. Mm-hmm. And then that summer we got after it. And then like he was our grade 12 year. He was on top of us the whole time. And he's like, you think you're good? Here, play these guys here. And like challenging us to be better and better. So I think when I got to college, I kind of just took that and kept kind of going with that. Mm-hmm. The only time in my life that I've felt that is, I still remember it to this day, is my 5th year. I where I lived at St. X, the gym, and then there was a parking lot, and then I lived in a quad. And the assistant coach walked me home. He's like, hey, we got to talk. I'm like, what's up? And he's like, a couple of guys are saying that you're being pretty hard on them. I was like, no harder than I was last year. He's like, yeah, but I was like, you ever win anything? Do you realize that games are going to be way more difficult this year? I'm like, I'm telling you, they're going to be, because every time you go and play someone, you're their championship.
Totally.
Everybody wants to be the team to knock you off. And I still remember he walked me over to my room. We chatted for a few minutes, and he's like, fair enough. And he walked and told those guys stop whining. And he's like, Randy's going to be the same way that he was last year, that he's going to be this year. And that's the only time where like I remember guys like, oh man, we won last year. Like, just chill. Like, you don't have to act like that anymore. Like, we're good. And I'm like, no, like, it's going to get harder. It doesn't get easier after you win. Like, it gets way more difficult because everybody's game is their best. No one, like, it's funny too, because when you are good, or when your team is good, you have certain things where when you go and play certain teams, everybody wants to beat the champ or beat that. So it's really important to get up on them really early, because then they'll just be like, oh yeah, they're way better than us, and they'll quit. And if you give them a taste, they're just like, oh, they're not very good. We can do this. And they're just, and because no one wants to be embarrassed. And there's all these different levels that come into it after you've won. And it was a lot of fun my last year at Langara and my last year at X, because it was very similar, where like the team was still really good, and you could feel that when we go into the gyms. Like, I remember when I was at St. X, every gym we went to, they sold out, because people that lived in the town didn't drive to nationals because it was too far. But they're like, oh, we could go watch the champs play against our local boys and see how it goes. And like every gym we'd go to, sell out. And it was a fun one. And the games were always that much more intense, because you could see the guys at the other end being looking around, being like, oh, there's normally not this many people here in this gym, and and in both scenarios, one of my last year at X, we were 20-0 in league, and no one had ever done that before. So that was a really cool one, where it's like every game was a sellout or pretty close to it, and everybody brought their best game, but like guys realized, and we kind of stepped up every game. And with some of the teams, we were able to just be like, let's not even mess around with these guys today. And we just come out and wallop them early, then chill on the bench. So yeah, anyways.
It's a different experience than we had, Carl.
Much different.
How's that kind of trend? So I played basketball against you. I played with you on teams. I know that you demand a lot out of who you're playing with. And you're not so nice to the people you play against. How's that kind of translate to business? First of all, like the competitiveness. Obviously, you go from winning a bunch of championships to playing pro in Europe, winning a couple championships, and then coming back to coaching. So you still have that like competitive atmosphere where you can demand a lot from who you're playing or who's playing on the team.
Yep.
You got to fly in there.
I got it up.
Okay, good. How does that shift? What was that first year like, going from sports in your entire life to now running a business?
Was really, really challenging. I went from working with really young, motivated men who wanted to be pushed to working with unmotivated females. Because a lot of the people I was working with for females,
probably males too. I bartended for a while.
No, I just
some unmotivated males in there.
But I'm just saying, my first year, there wasn't very many.
Okay.
Like there was one in the kitchen, and then I was the only other male.
Okay.
And then because for my first 6 months when I got into the bar industry, I was an assistant manager working under your brother, Denny. So I guess he would have been the only other one, but he was like, our paths didn't cross very much. So was different once I was the GM, because none of my competitive juices went where I'm seeing numbers from last year and I'm like, I just want to hammer these numbers. And where my job became difficult is like my first year of being a GM in every location I've ever taken, we always hammer the next year numbers. Then it's like, okay, well, year 2, it's like now you figured it out a little bit more, so you're beating your own numbers. Year 3, though, it's like now you're beating your numbers of your best 2 performances. It's like, oh, it gets a little trickier, and it starts to lose a little bit of that where it's like, oh, it's a Friday, it's this, you're going to do this number. But I still remember it as a GM, I was super competitive about beating that number.
Yeah.
So I would say that would be like how the competitiveness gets brought into it.
That's kind of a big, like a broad scale type thing. You're looking at like Friday numbers or weekly numbers or yearly numbers, but how does that translate down into like conversations with staff and stuff like that?
I always looked at it where my approach was always very much like sport, where that team environment, that team, like I always, like still to this day, I will tell people, I was like, people don't come into one of my pubs and say, oh, I had terrible service at Jimmy Mac's from this person. They say, I had terrible service at Jimmy Mac's. Same thing when a team beats UBC. They don't say, oh, I beat Denny. They say, oh, I beat UBC.
Mm-hmm.
So really looking at it that kind of that same way. And that's, I think, one of the things that I've been able to bring to locations that I've been at is that team atmosphere and getting people to like, it's important that you help people when they're failing because we all need to help each other. And that's part of being on a team, right? Where it's like, yeah, I've been fortunate enough to be on lots of championship teams, but like I'm smart enough to realize it's not because of me. Like I'm a part of that, but like I had really good teammates on all these teams, and it was like bringing out the best in people and them bringing out the best in you, and then finding ways to push people kind of out of their comfort zone a little bit.
How do you do that in the service industry though? Because a lot of people that work in service industry are, let's say, younger, going through college or just after college, and they're there to make a couple $100 in tips and leave. Like it's a selfish.
I think once you get people to realize that the short-sighted thinking is not the best approach, where it's like, yeah, okay, you might make more money this shift, but if I don't come and help Denny in his section, those people just don't come back because they say that they had a bad experience at Jimmy Mac's. They don't say, I just had bad experience from Denny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think once you get people to understand where it's like, it's the betterment of the team that you make everybody's experience, not just people in your section that you make money off of. And once people realize that, that's when you really start to see a location change. Because, hey, you want that person to come back. And then, you know what? Next time, go and meet them at the door, bring them to your section and blow them away with service. I'd say that would be the big one I use.
Are you enjoying the industry?
Yeah. I mean, I really like my job now because I feel like I'm like constantly putting out fires, and every day is so different.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be more challenging if I was a GM in one location and only in one location, where there's times that a GM will go away and I'll be at a location for a certain amount of time, but every day for me is different. Like I'm in the car. Like today, I've been at I've been at 9 different locations today. Like I did different things at all of them. I was doing caulking at one. I was painting at another. I was moving furniture. I was setting up patios. Like there's not a thing that I haven't done or won't do. So I think that's what I really like about it is every day is just different, So.
Because it seemed like you really enjoyed coaching.
Love it. The only thing about it that I don't love is I love getting to spend time with my kids and coach my kids. And that was one that was a bit of a non-negotiable for me when I was like, I want to go to Jordan's games. I want to go to Mason's soccer games. I want to see Harper play. Harper's running, by the way, right now. The cutest thing ever.
Harper is going to be a beast.
Oh, man.
She is feisty.
Oh, my goodness. It's like no one's business. But anyways, I've never understood people. And I think this is my dad had a big influence on this one. Or it never made sense to me. People that had kids then don't want to be around them. Mm-hmm. Like, just don't have kids. Like, be the cool uncle. Be like, swing in, grab them, do a fun thing, then be like, hey, I'll give them back. And so, my dad has always been in business. And I still remember, like, him, when I was 10, 11, 12, he owned a motorcycle store. He would be closed, like, his store would be open on Saturday.
Motorcycle store?
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought he ran, like, flooring companies.
So, my dad is a floor layer by trade, had his own floor layer company, turned that into, like, an appliance company. And then
midlife crisis, starts riding Harleys.
No, not Harleys. He was it was called what was it? AT Cycle.
Okay.
So remember those 3-wheelers motorcycles?
Yeah.
My dad was the last one of those in BC. Crazy. And then he was a Polaris dealer, so my whole family had Polaris motorcycles. And then he had a business partner in that he got into marine windows. My dad's a natural salesman. He's a very chatty guy. So that's what his last 20, 25 years is doing that. But when he owned AT Cycle, I remember him like closing the store to take me to a soccer game to go line a field because none of the other parents could figure it out. But like, here's my dad's not making money while all these other parents are at home having their coffee. And he's lining the field. We'd have the soccer game. Then he would either go drop me off and go and work until 5 or 6 and come home, But like, I remember him sacrificing and doing those things. So I think that's where, for me, the basketball thing kind of threw me off a bit, where it's like, we got our schedule in July. And it's like, oh, sweet, I'm away for a birthday. Oh, especially 2 of my kids are born in February. So like, the chances of me being away are pretty high. Like, Harper's born in September. So like, yeah, it was that I didn't like that part of it. Like, probably to coach a local team would have been fine. But even that, like, I don't know. It just, I didn't like the scheduling part of it. Like, I'm sure it would be much better if you're a head coach, because obviously you get to pick your practice times and those types of things. And I got to experience that a little bit at UBC when I first started. We had practices like 4 to 6, 6 to 8 type deal. And then Kev had his daughter Jessica, who he was coaching, and that's where we started looking at daytime practices. Then we realized how awesome those were. We're like, well, we're sticking with those. But I still remember the first year that we went to the coaches meeting and everybody's fighting over the 4 o'clock to 6 because they thought it was best. And we were like, we'll take a 12 till 2. And everybody's like, you can do that? And then ever since UBC, all the coaches are always fighting over those times now. So, but
it's not ideal for kids taking classes.
No.
I remember being there, and I think our practices the first semester I was there were 9 to 12. I think so. You couldn't take any more classes. And what motivation does an 18-year-old have going to a class after 4 hours of basketball?
Yeah.
I found out very little. All my classes were like 1 to 3, whatever. I must have been in class 25% of the time that year.
Yeah.
Still did okay. I passed everything.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
See, it worked out. Yeah. So that was one of the big reasons when I looked at it. Is the other big one we'd have to move. Like, there wasn't very many opportunities for university jobs in BC. And I'd say one of the biggest ones was I started to learn more about the industry, and there's just not very many good jobs out there. Like, I think Kevin has a very good job at UBC. Like, his pay is good. He has lots of support. He doesn't have to fundraise a ton. Like, he fundraises a lot. Yeah. But it's not like, oh, if you don't fundraise, you don't. Like, I remember SFU, where if they didn't fundraise, that was their exhibition budget. I'm just like, never mind. We're not talking scholarships or added extra stuff. It was like, no, you don't get to go on any trips. I was like, this excuse me, I'm like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
And my last year at UBC, I think I was making more than the SFU head coach.
I remember that.
I'm just like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So from a financial standpoint, there wasn't very many good jobs that way.
Did you ever look at going to the States?
No, you know what? I've never really looked into it. Like, I remember I got recruited a little bit out of high school, a little bit. And then I got recruited after my first year at Langara. Got recruited a little bit. And then it was never a big deal to me because I think I'm a little bit more of a realist. Like, I played a lot down in the States growing up like everybody. And it was like, I know I can play down there. And it's just a matter of finding the right situation. But I'm also a realist that I know that I'm not going to Duke and playing. So it makes sense to me if you're going to go to Duke. But like, no offense, North Dakota to me is not like, ooh, that doesn't, it didn't mean anything to me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it maybe would have changed if I would have gone and got to feel what that was like. But it was never really that important to me.
Even more from like the coaching side of things, though. Like,
Yeah, you know what? I always felt like it'd be much more difficult to come from the Canadian and go that way. Just the different rules and yeah, it was nothing. I never really looked at it, and nothing. I never looked back at it after either. You know, so yeah, it's funny when I still remember losing a game in grade 9. I had the last second shot and I missed it. It's still like, that drives me nuts. When I was in grade 10, there was a senior boys tournament. So and some team pulled out last second. So they phoned my high school coach and were like, hey, do you guys want to play? Like, so we played, we made it to the semifinal, and I missed 2 layups in like like, one of them was one of those like super long passes. And one of them, I think the ball had actually gone out of bounds, but because I was so much farther in front of the ref, he didn't see it. And so I like took it and I was coming back at the hoop, like an angle that I'd never worked on. So I was going to like, I didn't know to like come and then try to come back at the hoop. Yeah. So I like tried to go to the front and my momentum was going this way. So like I missed 2 layups and we ended up losing the game by like 1. And we would have played our senior boys in the final. And I'm so pissed that I cost us that game. Oh,
it's funny, man. Sports is so weird how random things stick out in your mind. Like, Carl, I'm sure you're the same, but I can think of random shots in mean nothing games that I can specifically remember exactly how it happened and that I missed.
Yeah.
So strange.
Yeah. That one in grade 10 really bothers me. Still to this day. Like, my high school buddy, one of them was so mad because he wanted to play our senior boys in the final. Mm-hmm. And he brings it up all the time. All the time.
Even in grade 12, in provincials, first round, we were down by, I think, 2.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like, this is a shot I shoot. What is the most common shot that I shoot? You know. I go to my right, I step back, right?
Yeah.
That's all. That was 87% of what I did in basketball. That's all I had. In grade 12 provincials with like 15 seconds left or something like that, we're down by 2. And I come off a ball screen. Carl sets the ball screen and I come off a ball screen and the guy kind of hedges, but I could have easily stepped back and shot a 3, which was like the shot I'd practice all the time. Instead, I just picked up the dribble and passed it back to Carl. And I think about that all the time. Like, just step back and shoot. Because I passed to Carl in a situation where he like has nothing to do. Like, he's at the top of the 3-point line. Someone is face guarding him. So he catches the ball like this. Like, what is he going to do like this with 3 seconds left? Makes no sense.
Do you think that time at U17 kind of fucked with your head for that shot?
Never thought about that. I don't think so.
No. No residual
That
ghosts.
just pissed me off. It didn't make me scared. It just pissed me off. It's a great comment though, Carl.
That's why Carl gets paid the big bucks.
Dr. Carl Sabula.
Yeah. You want to lie down here, Denny?
Yeah. Oh man. Do you remember shots like that? Was there anything super specific for me? That U17 step back 3 in the left corner. Because I went into the huddle. I fucked up my ankle pretty bad that game with like 6 minutes left and went into the locker room. And I remember it's so strangely like the physio is like, you can't play. Your ankle is really badly sprained. I'm like, just tape the goddamn ankle. So she tapes it and I like hobble back to the bench. And Dell's like, are you okay? I'm like, just sub me in, hurry up. So I get back in with like a minute and a half left. I think we have like, do you remember this? You were probably there.
Yeah, I was there. I just don't remember.
There was maybe like 6 or 7 seconds left. We call a timeout. We're down by 2. And obviously watching Michael Jordan as a kid, I'm like, Dell, just give me the ball. Give me a ball screen. And I'm gonna hit a jumper. We're going to win the game. And so I like come off I remember coming off of like a top screen off of the inbounds and get the ball on the left wing.
Mm-hmm.
One dribble step back to the 3. Straight on line. In the air, I thought it was in.
Yeah.
And it just front rim.
Short. Fuck.
From the baseline.
Because of the ankle.
Maybe.
Short because of the ankle.
Maybe.
Mm.
I thought it hit though. It left my hand and I thought it was going in.
It's one of those.
Mm.
I have one of those.
What a drastic difference in my career that one fucking shot made, eh?
Probably.
Because I played, maybe not, who knows? But just looking back, like I remember that how many times have I visualized that shot in my life? I don't know, thousands and thousands.
I would say
that,
like, as an athlete, it's one of those ones where, I mean, it's probably what makes you good is that you remember those. It drives you nuts. But at the end of the day, like, it's not like if you hit that shot, all of a sudden Duke's like, oh my God, did you see this shot that this guy hit? like, so at the end of the day, like, the end result is still the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have one or two of those in I played Fishu games. It's a second largest sporting event in the world. So it goes Summer Olympics, Fishu Games, then Winter Olympics. Yeah. And so we played, it was in China. And in the quarterfinals, we played China. At the time.
Was Yao there?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I played against, it was the biggest team to this date I've ever played against. They went 7-7, 7-1, 7 foot, 6'9", 6'6".
My God.
Our tallest guy was Richie Anderson at 6'7".
Yeah. I remember playing him against him in men's league.
And so we played them in the quarterfinals, and I had a 3 in the left corner, down 3. Like, ball moves around, I catch it, no hesitation, missed. And that was the game. Like, would have been like such a big upset because they'd stacked their team. You're supposed to be in university, and here's like all of a sudden all these guys that are going to Shanghai University. It's like, come on. One of them had spent and played for Denver. Remember the one guy that played for Dallas, left-handed guy? I forget his name.
Wasn't it Yi Zhenlian or something?
Yeah.
I know that guy.
Yeah. So he was one of the first Chinese guys, and he was at Dallas. Then there was this guy that had a big funky head, like power forward for Denver. And then they had Yao Ming, who was going to be the number 1 draft pick. Like, here he's standing there hanging onto the hoop. Like, yeah.
Do you remember like the 1 or 2 biggest shots you've ever hit in your career? Because I ask myself that sometimes, and it's very difficult to think of. And I think about them for a little bit, and I can come up with something. But the shots that I missed are so clear in my head. It's crazy.
I got a couple. My first year at St. X, we were down 6 with a minute and a half to go, something like that, and came back to win. And I had a shot with 10 or 12 seconds left. That was a big one. But probably the biggest one was my senior year. We played the semifinal game. We're back and forth with Mac. And they got fouled with 6 seconds left or 7 seconds left. Guys at the free throw line were up 1. So we'd called a timeout. And coach was like, okay, call the timeout. And I was like, no. If he hits it, and don't call a timeout and let them set up their defense. Just get it to me. Let's space. I'll penetrate, and we'll see what happens. Like, I'm not saying I'm going to shoot it, so make sure you're cutting, moving. And then it just worked out where, like, I ended up going and I actually shoot the ball behind the backboard, and I'm kind of like, that was a big one because it was like a game winner. And then there's a few that, like at my Langara thing, where we're down and we come back and win. So there was some big shots involved. A lot of those are just like, it's funny when you're in those bigger games, you can feel how like certain people just don't want to shoot, and you'll see it where teams are up and now they're like, they change the way that they play. They don't want to shoot. So it's actually the reason that teams come back and beat them. Yeah. Like I look at so many of the championships that I was fortunate enough to be a part of, and it's like, we shouldn't have won that one. We shouldn't have won that one. Like the team actually helps us out and they turn the ball over, like just like silly things, right? But yeah, there's a few that I remember, and that's for sure.
Carl, do you remember yours?
Not so much.
One or two? No.
I remember people hitting shots on us. That's what stays with me more. Like that North Delta game. Never forget that.
I don't remember them hitting a big shot.
No way.
I just remember me making a stupid mistake at the end of the game.
Do you think that helps you in the long term, or do you think if you don't make that mistake, it doesn't push you to become better?
It's difficult to go back in time and change things. I don't know. I know that I think about those things a lot, and that I don't want to have those feelings again. So I think it makes me better. But at the same time, if I step back there and drain that three and we go into the quarterfinal or whatever it is.
Are you more complacent?
I have no idea.
Yeah. See, I would say that it does help you as those defining moments. And I think that's one of the interesting ones when you watch The Last Dance is, okay, Michael Jordan's super competitive and stuff, but it was all those early years of losing and that feeling that he remembers is why he is so hard on teammates. You're not hearing guys in his first couple of years say that, like, oh, he's a jerk or he's doing this. He's the guy that's not drinking and doing blow with them in the room. Like he seems like a pretty straight-laced guy. It was like you probably, he gets built up and like you have this big rep, and then all of a sudden you're in the playoffs and all of a sudden you lose and everybody's hating on you. That feeling, I think that's where lots of times, like you said, is people end up remembering the losses more and the missed shot. And it's how you react to that.
Totally.
That really define you, not the winning of a game. I mean, those are nice, but if it wasn't for what you learned in defeat, I don't think that's why sport is so popular, because there's very few people that actually get to win at a high level. There's more people that have that, like, oh, we tried so hard, and it's like, oh, maybe you did, or maybe you didn't try hard enough, or like, it's funny, even like when you're watching like the Bulls thing, like there's so many of those games that, like the last one against Utah, they shouldn't beat Utah. Jordan hits big shot, Karl Malone turns it over. It's like, what happens if Karl Malone just didn't turn it over? You're up one, and
I'd say more that was a Jordan steal than a Karl Malone turnover.
Well, I mean,
that was a pretty good defensive play.
It was a good defensive play, but like not one that like you caught the ball in the post and you didn't think people are going to double team you.
Yeah.
You didn't have a clue where he was, because I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a great steal, but you look at those and it's like, okay, well, if he doesn't turn it over, what happens then? You're up one and you didn't even have to score. Like there's 30 seconds left or whatever. Like just so many different scenarios in those that I think you have to have those defeats, and then it kind of plays out. And that's where, like, when you're fortunate enough to be on those teams that win, you realize how difficult it is to do it.
Totally.
And that's where lots of times you'll see.
I don't know what winning is, so I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
The other thing growing up, Randy, I don't know if I've told Carl this before. It was obviously growing up watching Michael Jordan, knowing that he got cut from his senior team in grade 10. I got cut from the U17 team, provincial team. Provincial team was a huge thing when we were kids. It's not that big a deal.
But you,
anymore.
as a 16-year-old, right?
As a 16-year-old. And I would like remember Michael Jordan getting cut. And so I told myself as soon as I got cut, I was like, this is going to be the best thing that's ever happened to me. And a little bit more of a backstory. In that tryout, apparently it was me and one other guy that were like competing for, do you remember this? Competing for like the last couple spots. So they put
It's
us up
funny.
against each other.
I would be on that selection committee.
Yeah, so fuck you.
Fair enough.
So you, maybe it was you.
Okay.
Who was the coach that year? Was it Scott Clark?
I can't remember.
Because both years that you played was Dell, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Dell
so
was
this is my 16 year. He didn't coach 17.
Yeah.
Our 16 provincial team coach was a guy from Malaspina.
Yes, he was from the island.
And our assistant coach was Mike Morgan. Beauty.
Yeah.
Such a beauty.
I played against him. Yes.
So the first line that I remember very, very vividly from my like basketball career was the one that you wrote on that piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
That said, the only reason this kid's good. And then the second one was one that Mike gave me in U17 tryout. So backtrack, U16, I get cut from U17.
Yeah.
I play against the guy who is gets onto the team against me or ahead of me in the tryout. They put us together at the last day against each other.
Classic.
And I think I'm pretty sure this is correct, but I think I go 11 points on him and he scores 2. And he was a pretty good shooter. He scored like, his name was Connor.
Connor Agnew?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I definitely was part of that.
dominated him.
Yeah.
Because every time I got the ball on offense, I was like, I need to score.
From Prince Rupert or Prince George?
Prince
Rupert.
Right,
Yeah. Really good shooter, right?
Yeah. And it was like a 4-minute game and I scored 11 points. And he scored 2.
I can tell you who it was. It was at White Rock Christian and it's Scott Allen.
That's right.
Mitch is the assistant.
Fuck, eh? They wouldn't take me.
So it's
And I remember-
Scott Allen, me, Mitch, Goulet. Who else?
I wonder why. So, like in the meeting afterwards, they said you didn't make the team. We think you're going to develop better
On the U16
You know,
team, getting to play more.
playing
blah, blah,
40
yeah.
minutes a game as a
Bet
U16.
Rob made it as an underager.
Yeah, Rob was the only one.
Yeah.
And
Because Mitch is at STM at this point.
Yeah.
Mhm.
so I don't know. It's funny.
I still
'cause-
remember being at that. It's like, I remember more that Scott Allen wanted us to come back to his place and drink beers and go in his hot tub. But I definitely was on that selection committee. Connor Agnew. Yeah. I remember it came down to him. I think who else was in that mix. Maybe was Nate around? Nate, you?
I think Nate was at the tryouts, but
I don't think
like,
he made it. Was
Nate
in
got
that.
better later. Right?
Yeah.
When he was like 19, 20, 21, he got a lot better.
Yeah.
He was good in high school.
Yeah. Yeah. Like when you guys were on the under 17, it was kind of you, him as the guards,
he didn't
right?
start. No,
He
he
didn't
didn't
start?
start. It was Dylan, me, McCarthy, Pat McCarthy, Graham Bath, and Rob.
Rob.
Yeah.
It's a 90s lineup right there, eh? Big and brute.
Graham Bath at the 3? Wow.
No, Graham was at the 4.
4, then McCarthy. at the-
McCarthy was
McCarthy
at
at
the
the
3.
3.
McCarthy was solid. He was really good.
Yeah.
Anyway, so get cut from U17. Mike Morgan is one of our assistant coaches for U16. Whatever, we have a decent summer. Come back for U17 training camp. He pulls me aside in U17 training camp. He's like, Denny, I don't know what the fuck happened to you the last year, but you became a prick and I fucking love it. So that and the comment that Randy made were the two things that really stick out of my basketball career.
Mike Morgan would appreciate that.
So
You know what's a funny one is I was on that selection committee for sure. And then Kelly
Olenek.
I was part of the selection committee that we didn't pick him for the U17 team.
Was he 2 years younger than us?
2 years younger.
2 years,
So he
yeah.
wasn't a part of our
No,
U17.
No,
He was the next one.
is the next one, but he didn't make it as an underager either. We put him on the
He was-
U16 team in the same environment.
I remember because he was at CP. I remember playing against him and thinking he wasn't that good. He was so awkward.
And he was only 6'4" back then.
And
He's a little taller than that, but
think
like
he's
a lot
taller.
of people don't realize like me and Kevs had been recruiting him since grade 8. And if he doesn't have his last growth spurt, I think there's a legitimate shot we had him. And I don't know, like, there's a big difference when you're 7 feet tall and 6'7".
Huge. Man.
Never mind 6'9", but like, it's one of the funniest ones when, if you ever watch a Michael Jordan video, they're like, oh, he improved a lot and he grew 3 inches. Yeah. And then between his freshman and sophomore year, he really improved a lot and he grew 3 inches. Yeah. You're like, yeah, he went in at 6'2" and came out 6'6". Yeah, no kidding. And Kelly's definitely one of those ones where it's like, has a great skill package, is an okay athlete. But as a 7-footer, he's a much better package, right?
I remember even in I think we were grade 12 at CP, and he was grade 10, and he was mediocre. Like, he didn't compete with the grade 12 guys.
No.
He wasn't really coordinated. But then, like, 2 years later, he was just, like, a superstar, obviously.
Yeah. He was definitely going through a growing spurt in those years. And one of the best things is Dell and his dad had him play point guard. Point guard and quarterback. So, like, they let him touch the ball a lot. They let him make mistakes. They let him shoot it a lot. They let him, like, they kind of allowed him to be who he is now. You know, where it's like, if he would have played for a high school coach that's just like, no, you just shoot jump hooks, he's not in the NBA. Even though he plays the 5 in the NBA. But it's because he's like...
Does he play 5?
Yeah, plays the 5.
What?
He plays a spacing 5. Because a 5's got to guard him, and he can kind of guard a 5, and he comes in, and they pick and pop him, and if you close out, because he played point guard in grade 8, 9, 10, he can beat a guy in a closeout who's 7'1" and not used to guarding that. So, yeah.
Still pissed you cut me. Fuck you.
Connor Agnew was pretty good, though. So
I bet you were the guy, too. Randy's in the fucking press conference after the tryout. He's not that good. He only works hard. Don't worry about him. Can't shoot. He has no left hand.
That was a pretty good team. You know what? That is... did that team win gold with Scott Allen?
I don't think so. I think there was a bunch of years in a row that we came second. So my U15 came second. I think that U17 came second. My U17
because it's that second. Tyler Kepke,
Kepke, Malish,
Calvin Westbrook. Because he's the same age as those guys.
Yeah,
Rob was on the team, right?
Rob is an underager.
What's the Argyle guy's name? Kepke and the tall Scott
Morrison.
No,
he was. I think he was.
No, you're thinking Burke.
Sean Burke,
right.
Shooter.
Yeah. No. You're thinking Kevin Shaw.
Oh no, Sean Burke is the.
Sean Burke's the other point guard.
Point guard, yeah.
But they both would have been on the team.
Yeah.
Doug Plum.
He
was that year.
Yeah, he's that year. I think he makes the team.
I think he was on the team.
Yeah. Because I think that's when he comes back from Minnesota.
Yeah.
Comes back to try out.
Because that was a team where you guys played against Isaiah Thomas in the States. I'm pretty sure.
Maybe. Yeah, I wasn't on the coaching staff. I was just part of the selection committee. It's funny because my story is that when I was U15, me and Mitch played a regional Canada Summer Games team. Then when I was U16, that was when the first year they did the Jamboree.
Oh, yeah.
So my team in the Jamboree kills everybody. We get to the final and they're like, hey, everybody has to make equal playing time. And we ended up losing because the guy who was coaching our Jamboree team, his kid's on the team and his kid shoots us out of the game. But you're not allowed to sub because equal playing time. So anyways, we ended up losing the game. And nobody from my provincial group makes the team. We had 2 guys or 3 guys make the top 20, but none of the 3 of them make the team. And I remember I was so mad because like I was more just about like winning and like, so maybe I just wasn't a good tryout guy. And I was so mad I didn't make top 20. the next year is U17. I didn't even go to tryout.
Yeah,
It was a super camp. Didn't even go out. Then I played against Eberhard like a week later. Dropped 48 on him just in Richmond High's gym. He came over to me after the game. He's like, "Where were you last week?" And I was like, "Man, no offense to you. They screwed me last year. They don't get me this year." I was so mad. Yeah. Oh, well.
How political is that stuff?
There's a certain aspect to it, but it's really tough. And where I was going with this is because I was part of, because I had gone through that and had that negative thing, I wanted to be part of the process. And it was a lot of fun to be part of the process, actually, where it was really interesting where there were certain people in the room that definitely didn't pick certain types of players. So, and it would be like if Scott Clark said, because how it would work is you go around the room on the first day and you either someone's in, they're out, or they're a bubble. And so you just go around the room. But it depended on the order that you went. So if Scott Clark went first and he thought a kid sucked and you had a couple high school coaches after him, besides Eberhard, there wasn't a lot of guys that were going to be like, if Scott was like, yeah, this kid's not good enough, a lot of coaches next wouldn't be like, well, I think he's really good. You know what I mean? So it was funny because lots of times they would position where me and Scott would go, or they'd be like, no, you guys just change seats, or they'd ask the high school guys first sometimes. Like it was interesting to see how that would go. Just like how one coach can think a kid is great and how one coach thinks he's terrible. You know, and
Remember
it's like
those beauty high school coach that came to our tryouts? Gurley?
Yes, yeah.
The guy with the big beard?
Yeah.
You remember him?
Tupper.
He's still
Tupper,
around.
he still
doing
coaches
his
Tupper.
thing,
Dude,
man.
such a beauty. I just remember great things about that guy.
Yeah, he's
a beauty.
He does
So
a
much fun
great
to
job
play
at Tupper.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he's still there. He loves it. He played at St. Mary's.
Did he?
Yeah, he
Oh, I
played
didn't know
university
that.
basketball, and like he was one of my favorite to be around, to be honest. He was a lot of fun and like has a really good basketball mind and is really really can see the best in kids. I really appreciated that about him, where he had a really good eye to be like, hey, you know what? And he would, because he was a high school coach, he would know the backstory of a kid. He's like, hey, the fact that this kid's at this tryout, that's really impressive compared to like a Denny Dumas that's here. Like this kid had to take 3 buses to get here. This kid, you know what I mean? And like he would bring some of that backstory sometimes, or he would be like, hey, because a lot of my first couple of years, he was always coaching the B team. He's like, you give me that kid all summer and he'll be great. Like Tommy Nixon. Tommy Nixon is a girly guy where it's like, everybody's like, oh, he's not that good.
And Dimitri probably.
Yeah, Dimitri's probably another guy. Like it just, I got a lot of time for that guy. He's a real good guy. Yeah. But it's interesting when you're in that dynamic to just see how there is a bit of a political thing to it. And I mean, when you're at a tryout, it's just tough because everybody's looking for different things.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would just be easier if they just like picked the team and then gave it to a coach. And then lots of times it comes down to the like 2 players. It's between you and Carl. And lots of times they'll just turn to the head coach and be like, hey, it's the last guy. Like you tell us who you think you want to deal with. And they'll be like, oh, well, I'll deal with Carl. Denny's parents are crazy. Or vice versa. Or, you know what I mean? Like it just, it's yeah, it's a funny one. Or like, because Basketball BC doesn't tell them how they have to coach, you might get a guy and he's like, oh, I just want to play zone defense. Well, because Basketball BC isn't mandating how they have to do things. That's another one where it like throws wrinkles into it. So I can see where people think it's political, and there's some truth to that, where it's like, yeah, if you're a kid that goes to CP, we all know who you are. I'm not looking through a list to figure out, like, hey, what's your name again? What can you turn around so I can see your number? Like, no one ever asked you that at a provincial team tryout, where there's kids that you're going against that they're like, turn around. What's the number that someone wrote on your arm? Like, that's a real thing, right? And unfortunately for that kid, he's going to have to show better than you because you were at CP and he wasn't. I mean, I would always do it the other, like I would just watch kids and just knock them off the list. And then I'd work it backwards always. Because it's way easier to walk around and be like, nope. Okay, who do I got left? And then start to get to the point where you're comparing or.
It's probably pretty intimidating. I remember U17 tryout. Obviously, it was very different. I'd played on provincial team 2 years in a row. I knew I was one of the best players in the province at that point. And going into that tryout, it was just like, what's up, Dylan? What's up, Rob? What's up, Elliot? You know, whoever was there.
Yeah.
And the first couple of rounds were just a joke.
Yeah.
Right?
And to be honest, like if you're someone from the outside looking at it, they're going to be like, oh, well, they knew who it was. And it's like, yeah, but like the people that you just named, is anybody saying that they shouldn't have been on the team? Like, come on. Like in high school, that group that you just said, we're not even arguing about those kids. Yeah. And lots of times it would be like, we would just eliminate you guys. Like, Rob. We never talked about Rob one time. There'd always be a joke where we go around the room and everybody would be like, okay, Zachary. There'd always be some joker that'd be like, I don't think he's going to be that good, you know, and like joke around. But like at the end of the day, we're like, okay, like, why are we talking about Denny? Why are we talking about Rob? Why are we talking about Graham Bath? Like, just move on and let's figure out the next 7 guys.
Dell. So I played for Dell for 2 years, 15 and 17. And both years we ran the same kind of offense.
Yeah.
And the whole offense, he had golden rule number 1, golden rule number 2, silver rule. Golden rule number 1 was pass the ball to Rob. Golden rule number 2 was pass the ball to Rob. Silver rule was everything else. It was hilarious.
Yeah, if you got a
Rob played in the NBA. He's 7'1". I
was gonna say he passed a lot of eye tests. The funny thing though is like, you know, like, but Rob's not a scorer.
No, exactly.
So that's probably one of the faults of that team is like, Rob's a really, really good player, and at the high school level, he's really good. But where he was better was, I mean, you even look at his senior year, where his grade 11 year, he was like, even though he probably, well, he is the best player, but like his team didn't go through him. It was other guys penetrating in, being offensively aggressive, led to Rob scoring.
Exactly. Because
people have, like, if you penetrate and you just fake at Rob, people are going to stay with him. So you're going to get a layup. But if you're forcing it into him, it's not like he's no Olajuwon down there. Exactly. There's not a lot of sweet jumpers coming out of there, but like he's obviously a big body, a big target, but you probably, I mean, I don't know who would have been the best option on your team or would have had the biggest mismatch, but I mean, you look at Rob's NBA career and that's he's never been known for a score.
No. At that level too.
Yeah.
He wasn't that good an athlete at that level.
Well, I would argue that he's not that good of an, like, he's fairly quick, like up, like north-south to run.
Yeah.
But he's not a big jumper. He's just tall.
Yeah.
And like, I've played with lots of 6'7" guys that would, I've never played with one guy 6'7", had a 42-inch vertical. Like, he's sitting there down, like, I've played with a 6'3" guy that almost dunked from the free throw line. Like, when you see an athlete like that, you're not looking at Rob and going, oh, yeah, he's bouncy. Like, they're like, oh, he had a dunk. It's like, yeah, okay. It's wide open.
12 inches.
You know, like, it was a sweet 1 foot, 1 hander there. But anyways.
It's crazy looking back. Like, I didn't appreciate it as much as I think I should have. Looking back, it was a fun couple of years.
Yeah,
playing for provincial team. I know provincial team is not that big a thing anymore.
No, it's
different.
It's very different. Yeah. It's very different, and it's
but that was like the thing. That was it.
It was right around your time that Basketball BC started to lose.
Well, Drive. I think I was part of the first season of Drive.
It was when we were 15. Yeah, that was the first team.
Remember that?
A picture. Yeah.
Were you in that 3-on-3 tournament or no?
Outside. Oh, not the 3-on-3 tournament, but I was in the 5-on-5 tournament.
I think it was me and Jordan Mara and someone else. First Drive 3-on-3 tournament.
Spencer.
We were playing a couple guys a year older than us.
Mm-hmm.
We were huge underdogs, and we made the final. And I think, was it Spencer? No, was it Spencer?
Because wasn't he living with you?
I remember it was me, Jordan Mara, and someone else in this
Elliot?
tournament. Anyway, maybe it was Elliot. It might have been. And we just went off. And we were playing against a couple older guys from Ember Creek or something like that. I can't remember. And we were not supposed to win. And we beat them in the final. And Pasha was like instantly in love with me and Jordan.
Yeah.
But I think that was like the first year.
Yeah.
Another-
My first year at UBC, I don't even know what year that was, but it was probably 8 years ago, 9 years ago. Maybe 9 years ago. I coached Chad and Pasha. They're both their fifth year, and they already had drive up and going. And the biggest one to the province was Emerson Murray. Emerson Murray was the first best player in the province to choose not to play Basketball BC. And it's one of those ones where it's Basketball BC's fault because they just never realized the threat of club and always dismissed them and I believe have not realized their importance to the province. And it's been really unfortunate because I don't remember the last provincial team to win a gold at the U17 level. Like it might go back to Scott Allen with they might have won the year before you.
Did they?
The year that you didn't make it. They might have won, or the year before that. Because there was a run there where they had a pretty good little team. I know. Yeah. Anyways, there's been BC is having a hard time making the finals. So, I mean, the problem is we're just not sending our best kids.
Well, Carl said last year, you said a guy that didn't start on the STM team made the provincial team.
Yeah, because I'm coaching or assistant coaching with Mitch at STM, and like you'd see guys that are on the provincial team, they're listed, and they don't even see the floor. That blew my mind. I did not understand that at all. How does that work?
Yeah, well, it's just a very different world, right? Where there's kids that play for Drive or Athlete or PC Bounce or all these clubs, and it's not a priority for them.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate because if you're a young athlete, one of the coolest things to do is represent your like province with that like BC and be part of any type of ceremony. It's a nice, like even going to the U17s is always like, it's a cool thing to go through, right? Where it's like 1 year you're in Halifax. You're U15 year?
U15.
But like being part of the staying in the dorm rooms and like that's a step to the national team and like being in those like environments. Like I've been fortunate enough to play at Fishu games, Goodwill games, Pan Am games, and you're in those like environments where you go and eat and breakfast. There's another team and all their gear and like the Fishu one that I was at, like you got all these different athletes in different countries, and it's really, really a cool experience.
Totally.
And that's the part that I'm sad that people are missing out on is like, never mind not having an opportunity to win for your province, which is much cooler than winning some tournament down in Vegas that whatever, like that's a cool experience. And every tournament that I've ever been part of is the same, where it's like you win a t-shirt and someone's going to tell you that, oh, you got exposure or whatever. At the end of the day, where if you're really, really good, people will find you.
Totally.
And if you go to nationals and you beat Ontario, people are definitely looking at you. It's like, if you think that people aren't going to that, you're crazy. Or at least asking people like, oh, who's the kid that dropped 30 against Ontario? You know, like
I remember like coming out of grade 12 and talking to a couple of Canadian schools in the East. And one of the coaches, I didn't send them any videotape. They just called me.
Yep.
And they said, oh yeah, we've been watching you, whatever. You played really good against Ontario one game and you struggled the next. Oh yeah, that fucking sums me up pretty good. But like they were looking at the nationals, right?
Oh yeah.
But they're probably not as much anymore because the best guys aren't playing in it.
Yeah, it's funny at the university sport. Lots of times, people. I mean, with social media and all those things nowadays, it's a lot of times people aren't even going to those because like there'll be somebody there that'll tell them how it's going, or the only reason you'd be going is if you're recruiting somebody just to show face. Like I remember me and Kev going to Sherbrooke in Quebec because we were recruiting. Maybe it was Malish, and there was a group of those guys like Tyler Kepke and those guys that we were recruiting. So it was maybe to show face to those guys. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're good, people are going to find you. I'm sad that when people don't get to experience that, because being like, think of your under 17, not any of the games. You fly as your team, which is very similar to club. But where then it becomes very different is like if you're on a club team and you're down in Vegas or wherever you are, like you have a little interaction with people in hotels and then lots of times. But if you're in like in a thing where you got to have like your name and this is, you need this to get into breakfast, like that's a very different feeling than like your team eating breakfast down with other teams for breakfast.
U17, we didn't get that because it was at SFU. It was here. But U15 was like that.
Yeah.
It was at
Dalhousie.
Right?
Yeah.
In Halifax. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you like fly there with the women's team too and back.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's a totally different experience.
Yeah. And you think you're all cool wearing your tracksuit and like, like that's a cool one to be a part of. And like, I guess kids nowadays think that's cool to like wear their, you know, whatever, 3D or athlete or drive gear to school or, but it's really unfortunate that they're missing out on that.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I don't blame the clubs. I mean, I really think that Basketball BC really messed up. I remember having this argument when I coached, because I coached the under 15 team one year. And
did you?
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Yeah, coached. We got a bronze. Me and Jordan Yu he was my assistant. JY is an awesome coach. He's up in Prince George right now. His team just got second at AA provincials or double or triple now, I think, because they have quad, right?
I think they're AAA.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. But I remember arguing with the guy at Basketball BC. I was like, if you just gave me the best kids, I only need 2 weeks. But if you give me this group of guys and I'm missing the top 3 guys, like, okay, we'll be better by the end of the summer. We'll have better stuff. But at the end of the day, like, it's good players that win basketball games. Like, you're going to do a lot better. So, like, what is the result? Or is it about developing these kids? Okay, then take whoever comes to tryouts. But if it's about the end result of doing better at nationals, then we got to find a better way, because we need Emerson to play. We need this guy to play. We need this guy to play. Like, you got to have Pasha as one of the coaches. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm telling you that the way that we're doing it now, where you think you're trying to compete against them, like it's a losing battle, right? Like, there's kids that have been playing for these club teams. Like, well, my son's playing for a club team since he was 1 or grade 1. So, I mean, you fast forward when he's in grade 11 or 12 and someone's going to be like, oh, you should play Basketball BC instead of playing for athlete. Like, who's he going to pick?
All his buddies that he's played with for
and like
10 years over there.
Yeah, and just like that feeling of letting them down, where if there's some way that you could do both. And I think that's what Ontario does, is like they really, I mean, the club system is so much better organized and done there. And then they'll like, hey, is it okay if everybody just doesn't do something this weekend? This is when we're going to do this tryout or this training thing. And then they all just don't do anything that weekend. They get the 12 kids, then they get to nationals, and yeah, okay, they're not as smooth, but they got better kids there.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, Ontario is different because they have so many more, like lots of times they're missing their top kids too. who are playing deep down in the States at like real club programs. But I mean, they're still working with the local clubs, where I don't see that happening here, which is really unfortunate, because we'd really have to come at it a different way, I think. So, yeah,
it was a fun experience for us. Like, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
it's probably the best basketball experiences I've had.
You were really lucky though, because you had really like passionate coaches, very knowledgeable coaches. Like Dell's a good coach, Morgan's a really good coach. They were like really like got you guys to work hard. You had a good group.
Like, they just loved it.
Yeah,
the whole experience for them was equally as exciting as it was for us, right?
Yeah, and Dell's one of those guys. I mean, he's done really well as a high school coach, but like he loves it so much, right?
Loves it.
Yeah.
And everyone played, right? Like me, Rob, everyone.